How is it going, everybody? My name is DeMarco, and still hours later after the Starfield Direct and a pretty shoddy night's sleep because I couldn't get this out of my head.
Breathing the same air. I've got to have every molecule.
I still admittedly am at a bit of a loss for words with just how impressive the Starfield Direct truly was. My expectations are way higher than they've ever been for this game, and a lot of my concerns completely wiped away. And with what we've been shown, it was truly immaculately done, from the pacing to the things that were shown off to just the breadth and expanse of this game. Looking back at statements we've heard before, making the most epic sci-fi game, the truly most special game of this generation, and just doing it in all the best Bethesda game studios ways, it really does seem like it's all coming together. And with Starfield, you have like not 2, not 3, but 4 or 5 different experiences getting blended together, where a lot of games struggle to do that and do it well. Starfield seemingly is pulling it off spectacularly, and that's down to all the little details, from the customization to the personalization, and all rooted within that traditional Bethesda experience that we all love of being who you want to be on a level I honestly don't think we've seen in the past with other Bethesda games. You could tell that this is just absolutely the game that Bethesda has wanted to make for a long time. When Bethesda says how they've been working towards building this experience for 25 years in the making, all that passion and energy to create this new, exciting, and thrilling world is boiling to this penultimate experience that is truly encapsulating everything we know and love about Bethesda games, and it seems like they've captured it. So today, I just wanted to go through my honest thoughts, my reactions to the showcase, what we've seen, my gut feelings coming out of this showcase, and really, I will be diving deeper into some of the other elements in other videos, but for now, just a bit of a holistic overview, and of course, ending it with some of my concerns that I do admittedly still have about the game. But starting off, I just want to dive into the customization, because ultimately, this is one of the elements that excites me the most, where Todd Howard says, be who you want, and they're really envisioning that perfectly. And it's beyond some of the things that we've seen in the showcase. We have to look back at some of the previous statements where Todd Howard says, absolutely, you can double cross some of the factions to gain an edge with other ones, and you could play that double agent in a lot of ways. But from what we've seen just in the Starfield Direct, it's really blending all of the best aspects of some past Bethesda games. You have the leveling up system that's reminiscent of a combination of Oblivion meets Skyrim. You have some of the elements from Fallout with the crafting. You have a lot of the settlement systems that have been improved since Fallout 4 to Fallout 76 and now into Starfield. And of course, that goes beyond just your character, because it also includes now your ship. And holy cow, the amount of customization, absolutely, you're going to see some of the most creative designs possible, and it really affirms that bit of nostalgia that I had from the Fallout 4 showcase when they first showed off the settlement system and those kind of test builds and what were possible there. You think about what Bethesda was able to accomplish just for the sake of that initial gameplay demo, and you think about what they showed off with Starfield, building a literal robot. So people are absolutely going to be making Liberty Prime the ship within Starfield. But then even further, looking beyond that, the mods and what mod makers have been able to do with the settlement system in Fallout, put to the starship crafting system here in Starfield, and it blows me out of the water with the absolute potential and capabilities that we might see in Starfield. They've mentioned how they have more weapons in this game than ever before. They have so many different intriguing factions, which is more exciting in a way because it's brand new. You're not just getting the Fighters Guild or the Mages Guild that we've seen in past Bethesda games. Yeah, they shake it up a little bit in Skyrim with something like the Companions instead of the Fighters Guild, or the College of Winterhold, but it still fills that role. And now with Starfield, they're all brand new, and those smaller factions that you get a look at, such as the Red Mile operating in this casino, and we really haven't heard anything about them so far, and what possibilities, what other factions are still waiting for us to explore. Some of the corporations in Neon that we can get jobs for. You look at elements like in the game, such as the smuggling, where they absolutely have that smuggling mechanic and the possibility to upgrade your ship in a way where you have a percentage chance that you might get caught with smuggled goods, but you do what you can to optimize so it doesn't get picked up on radars and when on scans. That's exciting, so you can really do that. We didn't see too much of the bounty hunter aspects, but you know for a fact it's going to be there based on what they're doing with Aquila and the Freestar Collective and that Western vibe. So really leaning into all of the extremes of these different elements of the space genre, whether it's the Western fantasy or the more Mass Effect with Neon that's very reminiscent of Omega, or New Atlantis that's very reminiscent of the Citadel, being a melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities coming together. It really brings me back, honestly, to when I was younger with Oblivion and you felt like you could do anything, but of course the game had its limitations because it's a video game, and with Starfield, I've never felt you could truly do anything that you want to in this type of way, where you can absolutely live the space life that you want to within Starfield. But speaking of different games, the spaceflight is something I was always concerned about. For me, I've always appreciated, respected, and loved the fully handcrafted environments. So when Bethesda turns around and says, no, we're putting 1,000 different planets in the game, and you're absolutely able to fly your ship, vehicle mechanics, something we've never seen in a Bethesda game, and I'm a bit reticent to change, I kind of go, is that going to work out? But based on what we've seen, again, with the smuggling mechanics, but with the point system, the way that you have this game within a game inspired by Faster Than Light, where you can target individual systems on the enemy's spaceship, leads to these tactical dogfights that you can get into. Well, you also can get targeted in the same way. That's further expanded when you keep in mind you absolutely need to hire crew onto your ship to help manage it. I guess this is a fair place to say it. One of the areas where I do have concerns, because it wasn't necessarily concern might be the wrong word, but just lingering questions, is it doesn't really delve into exactly how the crew manipulates your ship and how they impact it. They say it will have an effect. What's the effect? But being able to pull up individual followers' skills and stats to put them in the rooms that's similar to Fallout Shelter, again, blending yet another game into the Starfield experience, I thought that there was a strong possibility it could feel a bit tacked on. It could feel second in nature, less priority, but they've absolutely achieved it, and I'm completely convinced otherwise. But why stop at simply letting the player get into fun dogfights when they showed off the ability to hijack and raid ships? But not just there. You don't just hijack it, you can literally claim that ship for yourself and fly it wherever you want, and then store it somewhere, and you have a whole hangar of different ships that you can control, whether you've hijacked them, built them yourself, or outright bought them. If you even look at when you hijack ships, there's actually this small snippet that I was able to find in my gameplay breakdown video where there's a moment that your ship can or cannot be registered, and I'm curious as to whether or not that's going to play a big factor when you capture a Crimson Fleet ship and you pull into United Colony space. Does that get flagged as a Crimson Fleet and they immediately attack you, similar to wearing different outfits in Fallout New Vegas, for example? Now it's a system I'm actively looking forward to, and you incorporate this with the amount of enemies that were apparent. There's one shot during the gameplay where there are just lasers flying everywhere, and it looks epic, and the idea of these big space battles that you can ultimately have with beautiful planets and asteroid fields going on, a space station in the background, really does bleed into this fantasy of the ultimate sci-fi game experience. And again, Bethesda could have just stopped there. They could have just said, we have the space combat, you can raid the ships, there's some locations to visit, but they fleshed those locations out as well and gave it the true Bethesda Game Studios touch with areas like the party cruises that you can go on, those party ships that you can land on and explore and find, the derelict ships that you can land on that had this small little snippet of a horror element, the anti-gravity combat, the weapons that you fire. They mentioned how the ballistic weapons actually have force that push you backwards while the laser weapons don't. All of these little elements come together to build this fully realized experience on top of everything you can do. This is not even talking about the planet side stuff and the exploration that's there. It's not even bringing up the factions and how they've made the biggest cities they ever have before. That's stuffed, which they acknowledge. The cities themselves are bigger, but so is the amount of content in them has been expanded appropriately to match. So there's more content than ever before in each of those cities. And this is all on top of this phenomenal amount of work that the delay has allowed Bethesda to work on. The lighting system in particular, this is a whole video that I would love to dive into, but the lighting system and the way the characters look on its own is a massive step up from what we've seen previously. New Atlantis looks more aligned with the concept art that we saw previously, which is a good improvement in my opinion. And just several other factors I'm sure yet remain to be seen, or several things we never saw, so we don't have a benchmark to compare to, but have been improved. We'll just never know it. But not just the lighting that's seen improvements, the gunplay as well absolutely looks a lot stronger than it was what we've seen in the past. It really does look like they spent time to hone in on it, refine it. With the stealth elements and crawling through the vents, maybe they're taking some influence from one of their other studios, partner studios, Arcane, with trying to have these creative ways to infiltrate certain levels, especially with the mobility that the jetpack provides, which is certainly cool. I do hope to see some of these, which are going to be strong improvements to that core Bethesda experience we've gotten in the past. But as far as the gunplay goes, which of course is going to be a massive component of the game, as it always is for any type of RPG, is the combat. It looks great. Even the melee weapons, punching enemies with unarmed combat, where they actually sort of move based on where you hit them. There's that locational feedback that the NPCs have. That in and of itself helps to provide this more immersive and more engaging combat experience that flows a lot better. I really don't know how someone could look at this experience and not think to themselves how it's really the Bethesda experience we've been waiting for arguably since Skyrim. Skill checks returning and the trait system to back that up, and NPCs acknowledging you based on what you choose and what you don't have. The silent protagonist and the return to deeper conversation mechanics and more fleshed out dialogue options. All those elements from past Bethesda games mixed with the new ones. It's amazing what they've been able to accomplish. But that doesn't mean I don't have my concerns with the game. Absolutely. There's things that I look at and I still go, I'm not 100% sold, and I do need to see it in action before I make a final decision, or just get to see more of it. In particular, there's this system that Starfield is using where the game procedurally pulls in locations to planets. So if we land on the same planet, it will have the same characteristics. I'll land on the same ice ball as you do, but I will have different points of interest on that planet because those randomly get pulled in. That does concern me a little bit. One, because a lot of the things that I used to love about, or I do love about Bethesda games, are that the locations feel naturally embedded into the environment itself. The location are kind of defined by where they are, but this is supposedly just pulling from a pool of a bunch of different things and saying, we have this and pull that one in and we're using this. And it might feel a little out of place. It might not feel too appropriate. Are you getting this system where you're coming across abandoned mine after abandoned mine after abandoned mine, and there's not too much there that feels worth exploring, especially when you have this massive expanse of space and it takes additional time to get to some of these locations? It's going to feel ultimately less rewarding if you're using your fuel consumption to get to a particular system. You spend your time as a gamer to land on a planet only to find this abandoned mine that really doesn't have anything interesting, because it takes longer to find that and to get to the next one. There's a little bit less of a payoff versus a game like Fallout where there's something interesting in every single corner around every single building. The other aspect as well, I think a lot of us will agree, is that 5-day early access if you cough up over $100 in order to get the premium version of the game. Bethesda and Microsoft, they know that people are going to buy into it. That's exactly why they're doing it. I don't blame anyone. I'm not judging anybody for buying into that early access, because the temptation's there and it's one of the biggest games of this generation. There's FOMO. There's absolute FOMO. Also do need to take a moment to address that 30 frames per second announcement. Todd Howard, after the gameplay showcase, did speak with IGN, or rather he did it before, but it released after. Spoke to IGN and revealed that the game is running at 4K 30 frames per second on Series X, 1440p 30 frames per second on Series XS, and saying that it was a creative decision, a design decision to do so. I understand some people are going to be upset by this because they do get motion sickness a bit easier. Other people simply aren't going to care. What I will say is my main concern and my priority is if they're going to make this tactical decision in a way to lock the frame rate at 30 frames per second, you better be sure that it stays at a consistent 30 frames per second. That's not to say that you're not going to have some stutters or some frame dips in certain areas. This game is absolutely gargantuan, has to be expected in some capacity, but I will admit that it needs to stay as close to that, if not better, more often than not. So Bethesda, Todd Howard, the entire team, you have me sold, you have me convinced. Those little concerns I do have are just specks of dust on the wind, a droplet in the ocean of magnitude and ambition that Starfield has proved itself to be. Again, those past statements, most special game of this generation, we got to see it. The patience, the waiting, the silence has finally paid off. This is why I say often in my videos, I say just wait. It's not a big deal whether they choose to wait and stay silent on their game for 6 months and then reveal it in this fashion, or they talk about it over an extended period of time. Let this be a lesson. It doesn't matter when you have this much confidence and you have this great looking of a game, and Bethesda clearly knows what they have on their hands. Even if the pressure is there to get it right, they know that they have something absolutely special. So I'm sold. I can't wait to see more. I'm excited, and I'll be covering this in depth in other videos later on as much as I possibly can. The ship mechanics, some of the other things that we've seen, some of the hidden secrets I want to dive into, the improvements in more specific videos. This is just my raw thoughts, but thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. Also want to cover Avowed and Fable and other games as well. We'll see how much I can do. I have reviews for Jedi Survivor I still want to put out. So thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.